Hello and welcome to Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast, the show where two former roommates talk about the Lighthouse. As always, I'm your host, Korbin Zvokel, and joining me is my fellow wiki, Kody Webb. Kody, how's it going? Are you tending the Lighthouse well these days?
Yeah, everything's good on the storm front, I would say these days.
It looks beautiful behind you. Your background, it's tranquil.
Really mesmerizing, I would say. I think this was the opening shot of the movie, if I'm not mistaken. And then the storm, just got much worse. But yeah, man, I'm doing great. Excited to be here. I think it's gonna be a fun episode today.
Very excited to talk about the Lighthouse. So let's go ahead and get into it with why.
Why so serious?
Kody, why did you want to talk about the Lighthouse?
It's a good question. It was my pick again in the season. Since you picked your last one on John Wick. I had a bunch of different ideas where to go. I feel like, in classic seasons past, I've picked a movie that, I haven't seen, a la, Annihilation and Goodfellas. So, I figured for this season, we might as well bring in one of those as well. And yeah, so obviously I'd never seen it. And I like Willem Dafoe and Rob Pat a lot. I knew the main cast. And I also heard it was pretty insane movie, a little bit chaotic and crazy. So I figured it'd be a fun one for the pod. But yeah, pretty much just because I haven't seen it. That was the main reasoning.
Yeah, you had thrown like a couple options, ideas that you were thinking at me, and the Lighthouse I hadn't seen either. So I was like, yeah, let's do that one. I had heard similar things. I knew it was going to be a wacky experience. And also, I think it's cool because not to like continue to harp on the April Fool's episode we did, but that was a Twilight podcast and they talked about Robert Pattinson. And it's interesting to see because, like, in a funny way, this is like part of the movie that was like the Robert Pattinson renaissance in the both mainstream and also like film broy indie art house A24 sort of way that happened with like Good Time and High Life. It's interesting to look at Twilight in comparison to this. This is like where the guys came around to Robert Pattinson. So of course we're the dudes on the podcast talking about the Lighthouse. It's very much a broy movie. We can probably get that out of the way.
I don't know. I'd probably classify us as film bros, not in the negative connotation of the word, but I feel like we're definitely in that category in some sense. And
We have our opinions that differ, and we see both sides
we're not the
sometimes.
classic film bros, but I think we're a part of the community.
I am wearing
Also,
a letterbox hat right now, so yeah.
classic. But also, I mean, we've covered a lot of Robert Pattinson movies now, especially including the April's Fool episode. Obviously, we did the Batman way back, and I mean this one, and he really doesn't have too many
That's
movies.
about
It's a
it.
good time. I mean, three though. I feel like that's pretty good numbers, for Cap
we,
altogether.
we might have to do some stats of actors that have appeared the most. I mean, obviously Defoe, we've gotten him as well with he's in Spider-Man and he's in Spider-Man No Way Home, so we've done both those.
It's also in John Wick.
Oh, damn straight, back to back, baby.
Barely remembering that movie, but yeah,
This really does pair with our last two movies. It's incredible.
yeah, it's kind of a kind of good pairing for Defoe and Pat stands. So I think fans of both those actors should at least be tuning in this episode. So that's a positive.
Hey, I'm a huge fan. And let's move over to Do You Remember?
Do you remember?
Do you remember?
So, Kody, I know this is going to be hard for both of us,
Yeah,
but set the scene. How'd you watch this?
tough looking back. I don't have the best long-term memory. But yeah, I watched it yesterday through Apple TV. I was actually scouring all of the streaming platforms, trying to find it somewhere. But
Showtime, I believe, has it.
yeah, I didn't really want to do Showtime free for a month or whatever. So I just rented it for like $3 on Apple TV. Yeah, good experience. I think this would be a good one to see in the theater, just kind of by its stylistic choices and pretty good camera work as well. But yeah, it was a good time. Shout out Apple TV. Still don't have Apple TV Plus, but when there's nowhere to watch these things, Apple TV can rent it out real nice. So shout out to them.
It's weird because I hardly ever use Apple TV to rent things. I almost always rent stuff on Amazon Prime just because like I have like gift cards and stuff in there, or like I have an Amazon credit card. So like I rarely go to Apple TV Plus for whatever reason. I did rent this on Apple TV. I guess it was just calling out to me. It felt like the right aesthetic to see it. So, but I watched this right after we recorded our last episode at like 1 a.m,
Oh
completely
wow.
dark in the house. Had my big monitor, and was just engulfed in the black and white beauty of Robert Edgar's direction.
Nice. I did watch it during the day. I feel like again, stylistically choices, it would have made a lot more sense to watch that night. But also, I mean, like this is kind of just like a horror, like it's horror-esque, I would say. I don't even know what genre
Well,
of
let's
film.
let's throw it over initial
Yes.
thoughts because I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Yeah, what do you think? What genre would you classify this as? Because I think it is difficult to place it.
I don't yeah, I don't know. That's what I was saying. I think there are horror aspects, obviously, for sure in there, but I don't really think it's a horror movie. I mean, I'd go drama, thriller, horror, somewhere in there.
I want to say off the bat, like this conversation is going to be very similar to our Midsummer conversation, our Annihilation conversation, like you brought up, where this is a movie that has a lot of interpretations that you can have. There's a lot of things to unpack. I'm sure we're going to not really fully understand some different things, or we're not going to get things right, but we're going to share our general thoughts. It also fits well with those two because, like you said, it's hard to place in a genre. Some people would maybe refer to this as like an elevated horror, both in a negative context or a positive context. That term can be jaded and not. But if you look at the Letterboxd genre, it is defined as a thriller, fantasy, drama, horror. So it's really just touching all the bases. It's really kind of all over the place.
Also, it's like ridiculously Shakespearean dialogue, and it feels like a play a lot of times too. So,
well, it's like a weird mix because there's moments of that where it's super, you could say Shakespearean, but also a mix of like these sea shanty-esque sayings and poetry and that type of stuff. But there's also like lines of dialogue that feel just like completely anachronistic and like modern, and it's that weird juxtaposition at times that's really interesting, I think.
Yeah, I mean the script, I don't know, I feel like it is pretty strong on paper coming out of these guys' mouth. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes like, what the hell did they just say?
It's a subtitle watch. I definitely recommend some subtitles.
100% a subtitle watch. But I will say it is unbelievably quotable. I think when we get to whose line it is anyways, we're gonna have a field day because
let's save the accents for there.
Yeah, but some of the things these guys are saying is just off the wall and super memorable. So I like that. And like I was saying earlier too, I think it's shot really, really interesting. Sort of when they are having either a long monologue or kind of having back and forth scenes, like you get close-ups of Rob Pat and Willem Dafoe just like spouting out. It's almost like they're rapping these lines as quickly as possible.
There's a rhythm. I think that's like in the same way that like iambic pentameter in Shakespeare has that particular rhythm of speaking. It's the same thing. There is a certain fluidity and pacing to the way that they deliver their lines throughout it, and it is very musical and poetic in an interesting way.
I think what you said of it kind of being like a sea shanty, like this whole movie could be a song, Loki. I feel like.
Yeah, it's like an old tale. Like you spin a yarn.
I like that. But yeah, the black and white, I want your opinion on that as well, because I don't know. I feel like it's not completely necessary. I don't know if they're trying to like depict a certain time period maybe with this.
I do have a little background on that if
Okay,
you want me to.
Go for it. Because I mean, just like the nighttime shots, obviously it makes a lot of sense, but I don't know if it's necessary the entire film, basically.
So what they were using was something called orthochromatic film, and like we're trying to mimic this old time photography practice where it's a lot of, if you see like portraits from this time period, the late 1800s, where it's very similar to the look of this, where it's like the dark faces and everything's washed out. It basically eliminates a lot of the red waves and the red tones in it. So that's where you get the sky that's extremely washed out and just seems gray. So that's what they're using. And then you get those moments where, like in my background, where it literally opens with what seems like a portrait where they're posing for that, right? And then of course you have the aspect ratio. It's not one by one. It is 1.19 by 1, so almost a perfect square, but not quite. But it just kind of, I think that's very intentional in the way that it makes the characters feel boxed in and tight and like claustrophobic, and there is no escaping. They're stuck on this island together. They're stuck in this house. They have to live together. They sleep in these beds next to each other where they're literally shitting and jerking off next to, like, it's just this awful closed-in way of life. And so I think the cinematography and the direction does a great job of really pulling that all together.
And I think it is a really beautiful film. Even your background, obviously, most of the viewers can't see it, but just like that opening scene of them carrying all the crap up, it literally is just a photographic shot right there. I really love that style at the beginning. In the end, I mean, as it goes along here, we can touch more into the story points, but I mean, it's basically just like these two guys descending into madness in a sense, but it's pretty confusing. I'm not entirely sure of what's real and what's in whose heads and who's crazy and who's not crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I think alcoholism has a lot to do with it. And I'll tell you what, this may be the most alcohol I've ever seen in one movie. That's got to be somewhere in the record books of at least the top 5 or top 10, I would say.
This and Project X, it's like,
Yeah.
where do we go?
Project X is probably close. If you like eliminate party movies out of the equation, I think this is one of the highest of all time. But yeah, I guess what are your thoughts on the general story? Just because like it does get a little bit insane, I think, as it goes along.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely gonna get into it with both the good and the bad, but like it is wacky and weird, and it's hard to follow. And there's some moment. The thing is, I don't think it's being attempting to be overly like subtextual. I think it's like pretty obvious with like what it's meaning, like these homoerotic undertones and the power dynamics and this like Oedipal relationship of Rob Pattinson basically needing a father figure and Willem Dafoe's character basically needing someone to have, power over and be able to abuse. And Robert Eggers said he wanted to make a movie that Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud would like. So I think there's some very clear and obvious interpretations that you can take out of that statement. But yeah, in terms of the story, it's strange, it's wacky, but it's different and it's fun. And before we move on, do you know anything about like the background of this story and how it came about, like what it's based on?
No, definitely not. I would assume it's some old, fiction that was wrote in, the 1600s. But I've no idea.
It's a combination of real life events and an Edgar Allan Poe adaptation, actually.
I was gonna name drop him, but that does not surprise me at all. It's Edgar
Yeah,
Allan
exactly. It definitely has those vibes. It feels the Raven, the Telltale Heart, like that aesthetic of everything that Poe does. It makes a lot of sense. So there was like an unfinished Edgar Allan Poe thing, The Lighthouse, that he wrote. And I think it was Robert Eggers' brother was trying to like do an adaptation of that. And then he had a conversation with Robert Eggers over dinner, and they found this real life tragedy called the Smalls Lighthouse tragedy, was actually very similar, where Thomas Howell and Thomas Griffin, these two guys who managed the lighthouse, were a team. They were known to publicly quarrel with each other. Thomas Griffin died in this freak accident, and the other one, Thomas Howell, feared that if they like figured it, like found the body, he would get in trouble for it, and like he would be accused of murder. So he like built a coffin and tried to bury it, but then or he like tried to put it outside, but then the wind blew it away, and like the body was just hanging on the rocks and would like motion to people in the wind or something. This is Wikipedia research. I don't know. Basically, eventually he comes and gets picked up, and they discover this awful tragedy. All of like this guy's friends said when he returned, he was like unrecognizable. He was a completely changed man. Something on that island happened, and it was just like spooky shit. And because of this, they moved that there had to be 3 people that were manning these islands and these rosters. Yeah, which is pretty interesting.
I like that actually. So this movie is basically just a direct repercussion of the Lighthouse, career as a whole, from moving from 2 people to 3 people. Which yeah, from this movie, I back that. I think that makes sense.
You need somebody to relieve the tension sometimes.
I like that a lot though. Yeah, that is funny. It's kind of based on a true story, which I wouldn't have guessed. I mean, they mentioned like, oh, sometimes when storms get bad, like people get, stuck out here for forever. So I guess that makes sense on it would happen in the olden days like that. But yeah, I would say, a little bit of fiction, a little bit of nonfiction, that makes kind of the best story sometimes. So I
gotta say, like that feeling, we live in a digital age where like you can connect with anyone and you can send messages halfway across the globe. And like, yes, there are still parts of the world that are more remote and like you can't connect with people. But can you imagine like in the late 1890s, you literally have no connection to the world. A storm happens, you never know. If people could also just like forget about you, they'd be like, who cares? And like there is literally nothing you could do. You are trapped on this island, and those feelings of desolation are prominent throughout. And I think it's really strong to kind of tap into that.
And I think that's why you can kind of buy into sort of the insanity aspect of it as well. Like you said, I mean, they're stranded. Like nobody's coming for them. The storm is never going to end. It's literally just them 2 on this island. Probably it felt like to them for literally the rest of their lives. So you can understand kind of character wise where their headspace might be at too.
I agree. Let's move over to trailer talk.
Tell me, what's a timberman want with being a wickie?
Just looking to earn a living, just like any man. Starting new.
On the run. keeping secrets, are you?
No, sir.
Why'd you spill your beans? Why'd you spill your beans? Why'd you spill your beans? How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
You selected the first trailer released by A24. What did you think about it?
I thought it was good. Yeah, basically, I mean, there's 2 trailers that was released. I picked one with more views and the one that dropped first, basically.
12 million.
Yeah, I mean, good amount of views. I feel like we'll have to talk about box office wise, but I don't think it did that well. So that's pretty interesting. Just viewership on that, I would say. Yeah, I like the trailer. I thought it kind of included a lot of some of the best shots in the movie without actually giving away plot points, which I like. And also like the foghorn, like is a cool opening sound and a cool ending sound, just because it is incorporated in the movie a lot too. But it kind of has like that sort of Inception trailer vibes where it's the but it actually the whatever. But it actually like makes sense for this movie. Like it's kind of a character in itself, I would say, because it's bwang the entire mofo movie. So I thought that was cool for the trailer to open like that. But yeah, I thought like good job setting up the dialogue style and the visual style too. You get a hint of a little bit of the monologues from Willem and Rob Pat at very different times. Very varying through the movie. It does kind of jump all over the place, and it even does have a shot of Robert Pattinson burying Willem Dafoe.
You're taking all my stuff, man. You're saying everything.
Oh, I got you nuts. But yeah, I mean, obviously you don't know Willem Dafoe is being buried. And it is kind of just a cool shot of, him shoveling some dirt or whatever. But I thought that's kind of a cool callback after seeing the movie too.
Talking about the box office, this had a budget of $11 million and grossed over 18 million worldwide. So for a small movie produced by A24, especially being sold on Robert Eggers, this was obviously a bigger budget from The Witch. The Witch had a budget of $4 million. Robert Eggers gets to do this movie with a budget of, about 11 million. He's working with some bigger stars. Obviously, Anya Taylor-Joy at the time was not a huge star like she is now. But no, this movie, I think it was pretty successful for like an indie independent film with just like 2 actors that probably did not show. It probably showed maybe like 1,000 theaters worldwide, if even that, or not worldwide, but like across the country. Did not definitely have a wide release. I do want to mention the "why'd you spill your beans" that just like gets repeated over and over in this trailer, which is just incredible stuff. I love that.
Yeah, and there's also like several pieces of dialogue that does get repeated over and over again in the movie, and including the "why'd you spill your beans," I think is a fun one to have in there. It kind of just hints at the notion of the script's a little bonkers, so at least expect some craziness, and I think that definitely is portrayed in the trailer. So I like that too.
For sure. All right, let's move on to the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll get us started here with the good. I think the thing that is what makes this work is that Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, everyone involved completely and totally buys in. There's a commitment that is you clearly seen by the characters on screen. Like they were on this shitty island where it was cold and they would just do these scenes all day and then they wouldn't talk to each other and they would just be miserable. But like everyone is committed to saying these wacky lines of dialogue and to completely being invested in the material. And I think that's just is needed, and you have great acting performances because of that. Their relationship interactions are extremely interesting because of that,
and that was definitely the thing on the top of my list as well. I mean, the commitment, as you mentioned, in the 2 main actors, it's pretty insane. I mean, it's literally the only 2 people we pretty much see on screen. There's another character who has no lines really, and we'll get into later, obviously. But I mean, they literally have to carry the story on their backs. So props to them. I think without either Rob Pat or Willem Dafoe, this is a completely different movie. So acting wise, I think off the top, that's something we need to definitely shout out.
I also think it's just incredible casting because,
Yeah.
especially in terms of the Rob Pattinson, like he's playing both with type and against type, and the idea of like he's a pretty boy. Like that's what he, made his name on, right? He was Cedric Diggory, he was Twilight, or he was, fucking Edward Cullen in Twilight. Like he made his name on being like the heartthrob pretty boy. And so his character is kind of supposed to be that. He's supposed to be like this handsome guy who's, underappreciated and is a little bit of a runaway. But then it's also the thing of like, he's also kind of wacky and weird, and he says like weird shit in interviews and has an insane personality. So it's like playing into that, and it's mixing both of those things against each other in the performance that he gives, which I think is incredibly smart. Willem Dafoe is playing a lot more into what he has done for a lot of his career. Obviously, he can go up and down. Robert Pattinson was more of a transformation, I would say, from the beginning to end, though.
I feel like I don't know Willem Dafoe, but I feel like this is what he normally his everyday life. I feel like if you just strip back,
if you put him on an island, this is definitely how he would act. Like no doubt, he would go full for it.
If you stripped him back from society a little bit and just had like a one-on-one hangout with Willem,
I'm not sure how much into society he is, but
fair. But I feel like this character was pretty perfect for him. So I agree on the casting part there. And yeah, Rob Pat, kind of the first two acts, I feel like he doesn't have a ton to do. It's kind of just like, oh, he's Willem Dafoe's, bitch a little bit. But I mean, as the story goes on, he kind of descends into madness, I think more specifically than Willem Dafoe. So I think he has a little bit more to do there too. Then yeah, the third act, he just goes completely bonkers. But I think performance-wise, it was still pretty strong, especially for Rob Pat. Like you were saying, I mean, coming off of Good Time, I mean, that's a good performance. It's pretty much nothing like this at all, I would say.
He does like a man at struggle, a man at odds end. And that's like what got Good Time is a little bit.
I agree, but I think they're both ridiculously good. So definitely wanted to start with that. Past that for me, cinematography I mentioned is pretty freaking dope. Just the
Oscar nominated.
Yeah, and deservedly so. I mean, the shot of them just standing in front of the lighthouse before the storm too, ridiculous cool. Every shot is really well thought out, and that is probably my favorite part of this movie entirely. Past that too, costume design, set design, really strong. The clothes I love for the period piece, and just the lighthouse look in general I really like. And I believe some of the birds are practical here. I would assume not all of them are.
I heard rumblings of a bird trainer.
Okay, interesting. And I can believe that too, because there are a lot of scenes involving the birds here. But I thought they were all really well done. I mean, even in the beginning undertones of like, oh, the birds don't like Robert Pattinson, kind of just like pecking at his clothes. And then it eventually boils down, obviously, to the scene where he, I would say pretty brutally murders one of these birds for a good amount of time.
It's intense.
And then the ending as well, which we can fast forward to, I guess. The birds are doing their job. So shout out to the birds in this movie. I didn't even think about them to knight them, but that would probably be my pick. But yeah, shout out the birds, man. I just want to say, like, practically, I think they did really well on that end as well. Kind of all the technicals in this movie is ridiculously up to par, I would say.
Definitely. You're spoiling my knighting, Kody. What the fuck, man? You've talked about like this idea of a descent into madness, and it's almost like from the moment they step onto the island, it's like a descent into hell is what I see it as. And David Sims of The Atlantic wrote, the remote, desolate lighthouse that Winslow moves into at the start of the film would be foreboding enough without those dreary, shuddering honks, talking about the foghorn. But the way Edgar shoots and score this movie, Winslow might as well be crossing into the underworld. And I really think that is like, he's moving into hell, and Willem Dafoe is basically like Satan presiding over him, putting him, in an eternal punishment in a certain sort of way, is one interpretation of this for sure. Another thing, I just like a lot of the cool imagery. Obviously, the one that I like was instantly able to pick out is that ending of Rob Pattinson splayed out dead with the birds pecking out, like we talked about. Very much the Prometheus idea. Obviously, that's like chained to the rocks, forced to have his intestines eaten out every day and then regrown and eaten every day as eternal punishment for giving man fire. Definitely an interesting callback to that. You have the idea of like the sirens and the mermaids and that particular character that I'm sure you want to talk about more later. So you shaking your head. Dafoe at points is representative of this character in mythology, Protus, who's kind of like an advisor or works with Poseidon. There's that particular shot where he's got like the crazy barnacle outfit. Also, shout out to Aquaman. Where is he, King Triton in that? Or what character does Dafoe play? I don't even know.
Oh shit, I forgot he said Aquaman. Yeah, I don't even know who he plays.
Yeah, who knows? And then of course there's also the sick shot of they're like naked and he's like grabs him and there's the light shining from his eyes down, which is the reference to this painting from 1904 called a Hypnosis, which literally it's like exactly the painting, which I just think is a cool reference to bring in.
Yeah, a lot of weird stuff. I don't know what half you're talking about there, to be fair, but the one scene with naked Defoe with like the light coming in his eyes visually, I'd love that. Doesn't really make sense in context, but yeah, one scene that I wanted to bring up as well. I think might be my favorite scene the entire film. It's like the dance scene. So it starts off kind of with the craziness of them just singing. I think it's like this.
Basically them getting drunk for the first time, right?
I don't know if it's the first time. I mean, they drink so much in this movie.
It's when it's their last day.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, I think I don't know, but basically it starts off with the crazy dance scene, and then somehow it goes into the slow scene with, like you were saying, a lot of homoerotic tones there. You think they're gonna kiss for a second, and then it ends up just being a straight up like bare knuckle fist fight at the end with Rob Pat throwing just body shots off the top. But yeah, I think that really just sums up the movie perfectly of just crazy unexpectedness. You never know what's going to happen next, but it is kind of centered around these two characters and they're really, unique and ever changing relationship. So that probably for me was symbolically and just like on a humorous level, my favorite scene.
Yeah. It's hard to like differentiate all of the great scenes of their interactions. Obviously there's the one where the lobster scene where he curses him, and that apparently Dafoe, that was like all shot in one take, and Dafoe did not blink for 2 minutes straight. He was just like enthralled with remaining eye contact and being connected, and just incredible work all around.
I feel like I could cram in some other scenes in the good here, but I'm gonna leave it for later on just because there's a ridiculous amount of ridiculous in this movie. But yeah, that was the gist for me.
Let's talk about the bad. So just in general, it's a bit slow. It's got I don't know, like there's something with the story in general that is like not gonna make it ever be my favorite movie of all time. I just can't fully connect with like the weird supernatural fatalistic nature of it. Like I think it's cool, I think it's interesting, but for me it's not the thing that I always want to go to as a movie. It's not something I'm probably going to rewatch a bunch of times. Like I can appreciate it for the art it is, and I think it's really cool, but it is just not, I don't know. Where do you think the rewatchability of this lies?
I think I'm kind of in the same boat with you. No pun intended, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like, artistically this is a fun movie, but for me on something that I would want to rewatch, I don't know. Like you said, it's a slow burn too. Like it takes a while to kind of get to the point in this movie, and then it does go crazy. But yeah, I probably won't rewatch this anytime soon, if I'm being completely honest.
The thing is, like, it's not like there is a story, and obviously something happens from start to finish, right? Like there are events. Maybe there isn't really a story, but it's less interested in that, and it's more interested in performance and aesthetic and just putting these two in a box and making them go head to head. And that's okay. Like that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're putting it in the bad here, but like it's okay at points. Like not every movie has to be fully about story, so we can appreciate that and still say it's not super rewatchable.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think the story kind of can get wonky at sometimes, which I say we dive into a little bit. I mean, the third act, I kind of understand what's going on. I kind of don't at the same time. Maybe we can break these down a little bit more. So I kind of want to start off pretty much at the end, almost the kind of most confusing scene to me. It's kind of the Willem Dafoe. Is it kind of like a sex scene, but also not really? You mentioned already, but it's kind of like flickering back and forth between all these realities of him having sex with this mermaid lady, and then Willem Dafoe with all the tentacles, which was seen earlier in the movie when he was in the lighthouse. So I'm not sure exactly how that plays out. And then yeah, he just makes him his dog at the end and tries to bury him alive. So kind of, like I said, flickering back and forth between all these realities is a little weird for me. Visually, I like pretty much everything in that, but I'm just kind of confused on because what I think is going on, because none of this really starts until Robert Pattinson touches the alcohol too much. So I think maybe that's a massive metaphor of maybe he was an alcoholic before, and then this has kind of just made him turn extremely downhill and is kind of having these flashes of obviously he's horny and the whole masturbation, the shed scene. I think that plays into this a little bit of, he's having flashes of wanting to have sex with, these mermaids and stuff, but also, I mean, there's some sort of fantastical element because I mean they were talking about Willem Dafoe's last partner kind of going through the same thing. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because I'm pretty lost in general, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know if I can really. We'll see. We'll do my best to dissect it, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Like it's this idea of extreme hyper masculinity, pent up rage when you're put on an island where you're alone and you can't have sex and you're stuck there. And it goes back to that Oedipal thing where like the son wants to kill his father in the end of the day, right? Like he feels the abuse, he wants to kill his father and marry his mother. I guess in this case, the mermaid and the siren is the thing of his attraction, or maybe even the lighthouse is the wife or the mother in this scenario. He's trying to get up there and see the light and finally attain it. And he does have that moment where when he sees the light, he experiences what appears to be intense pain, but also maybe some sort of extreme sexual gratification in that weird blurred face scene in Top of the Lighthouse. But yeah, there's definitely that idea of like flipping the power dynamic on its head, taking control. He's putting him in literally the lowest possible position in that of an animal as a dog, and puts him on a leash, which, from a modern sexual perspective, but even like a traditional power dynamic perspective, is clear in what it means and in the tones it has. And then obviously, I guess he just, at the end of the day is going to kill him as the story always goes.
And I that is a good point. I mean, kind of the flipping of, who's in charge, I think makes a lot of sense. Especially, I mean, he's kind of been withering down Robert Pattinson the entire movie. Even the scene where it's like, oh, you didn't.
He's being gaslit. He's being gatekeeped. He's
like, oh, you didn't clean the floor well enough or whatever. Like, I don't think it was that bad. It's just Willem Dafoe literally wanting to have control over everything. So that makes sense, kind of wanting to reverse that dynamic. Another scene that I wanted to bring up too, which we already mentioned, it's the naked Willem Dafoe scene with the spotlight with the eyes. Like this shit's got to be drunken dream sequences, right? Like this has to be some sort of dream, or he's just blacked out and experiencing whatever. I don't understand it, but it looks cool visually, which I already said. But yeah, why'd you spill your beans, man? I don't understand.
Why you just spill your beans?
Also, there's like the repetitive nature of that too, where it's just like I feel like I'm kind of going insane watching this movie a little bit when they say the same words over and over again.
Well, and then they literally have a scene where they stare at each other and go, what? Like that is so it's I mean, it's a bit on the nose, right? But it works.
That was in my Whose Line Is It Anyway? So it's fun.
Which one said it? I don't know.
Yeah, that's gonna be the joke. But yeah, I don't know. Kind of plot points. I don't think this movie cares a ton about it. But past that, I mean, the ending, I think it's good. I think maybe it's on the nose of metaphorical, like, oh, obviously Robert Pattinson killed this bird, so this is what he gets for it and all that stuff. And he went about it the wrong way, getting what he wanted, to get into the lighthouse. So it's gonna punish him for it. Like I understand sort of the metaphorical, what they were going for with that. I don't know. I just don't really love the ending. It's obviously a downer, which is kind of expected in a movie like this. But it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a lot of negative, and then there's fun moments too. But the ending I thought was just kind of really gross and fucked up, which again is kind of expected of this movie, but maybe not just my particular cup of tea.
Well, gross and fucked up is the perfect segue to our ugly, Kody, because this does not, hold anything back in the realm of gross or explicit in its imagery. The dudes, they be shitting and farting and pissing all over the place, coming at points. There is some mermaid genitalia shown potentially. Yeah, a lot of strange imagery. Obviously, as well, the lighthouse specifically is a very phallic idea. It is described in the script as being representative of a penis in a certain way. Apparently, there was, in the original cut of a film, a literal match cut between Rob Pattinson's character's dick and the penis, where it would be, or sorry, in the lighthouse, his dick in the lighthouse, there would be a match cut between the two. which would be, very interesting.
I think we might need a director's extended cut just to see that alone. But I mean, yeah, like you said off the top here, my first one was the masturbation shed scene, and then I believe like Willem Dafoe was also masturbating in the lighthouse scene early on in the film because we see something drip down. So not really explained, but I believe that's what was going on. So just fun stuff there overall. Past that, I got a couple other little things. First off, I mean, just alcoholism, extreme alcoholism in this movie, I would say. So it's a little ugly. And then my last one, I mean, I feel like getting murdered by an axe, probably one of the worst ways to go. I don't know. I mean,
Well, then getting buried alive on top of that.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. I mean, first off, he gets buried alive while he's acting like a dog, which is pretty ugly itself. But then I think he's kind of faking, he's officially dead, and then comes back with an axe and sticks Rob Pat in the arm, which was a good shot to be fair, but it didn't take him out.
Not good enough.
And then yeah, Willem just gets stuck straight in the face to end it all for him. Sad. Rip Willem. But I mean, he kind of did what he needed to. Like he cut Rob Pat enough where he's gonna bleed out eventually, and eventually got pretty much the ultimate punishment for it. So I'd rather go out Willem's way than Rob Pat's way in this movie, to be fair. But
yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Both murdered by axe, I would say, is pretty tough. So I had to shut that out as well.
I did mention earlier that Dafoe and Rob Pat did not talk, and I was watching today. Dafoe did one of those Vanity Fair look at my career actor interviews 4 weeks ago for Inside, and part of that he talked about, he's like, yeah, I didn't know Robert Pattinson, he's a good guy, I've talked to him now, but it was just so cold and the weather sucked when we weren't shooting. You were just trying to stay warm, and then when you were shooting, you were just in the scene working, and that was just your entire day. I saw something else somewhere that was Robert Pattinson went and stayed in a hotel, and Dafoe lived in a weird little shack somewhere, and Dafoe would more talk to the crew and kind of hang out with the low people, and Robert Pattinson, I don't know, just kind of hung out by himself because he is kind of standoffish a little bit, I'd say.
That makes sense, and sort of just method acting, I guess.
It works for the scenes, it makes the movie probably better.
I think they both are really good. That does not surprise me at all that Willem was he probably lived 2 minutes away from the set in this random shack, and Rob Pat was hell no, I'm actually sleeping in bed and stuff. But yeah, I think the intensity really does come out between them a lot, and murder by axe, that probably shows it the most. So there's probably a lot of pent up aggression just throughout the filming of the movie that they probably enjoyed, the murder by axe scene a little bit. Yeah, that is funny.
The last thing I wanted to talk about is, are you familiar with the Let There Be Lighthouse auction from A24?
No, I don't know what that is.
So basically they did a charity auction for this movie to support the Food Bank of New York, which is a cool thing. I'm not saying that's ugly. So they auctioned off Wake's pipe and one of the uniform hats and the mermaid carving and the lighthouse station flag. And just to share, the price some of these things sold for. The pipe sold for $4,250. The uniform cap was $4,000. The mermaid carving was $110,750.
My God.
But the light from the actual lighthouse light was on auction as well. And it was hard to do some research, but there was a little bit of controversy about it because there was an $80,000 bid that was put up, and that was won, but then A24 decided to not accept the money for some reason. I couldn't exactly figure out why, but I don't know. It's just a little bit interesting. And apparently it's now in a museum, which I think is great that, people can go experience the light, but I don't know, controversy, Kody. Wow. Someone, maybe didn't have the money to own the light. They tried to buy it. Who knows what happened?
Yeah.
But the light, A24 didn't want to give it up. They're just like Dafoe.
That was really funny with the themes of the movie, but yeah, maybe a little Joey Tribbiani situation where they bet they didn't actually have the money, or maybe it has these actual mystical powers. I kind of like that backstory. So yeah, shout out the light. I think we need to go check it out at their museum and see if anything happens. I think.
Hopefully, only the good stuff. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we're back with Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Welcome to Whose Line Is It Anyway?
This is going to be real tough. We got a 50-50 shot on pretty much all of these. You want to take it away, Kody?
Yeah, and like I mentioned, I did have what what as one of mine, but we'll skip over that one. My first one, and these are all just like funny lines that I think are dumb. So prop that too. But the first one is, "I'm just joshing you, lad."
That's definitely Willem Dafoe's Thomas Wake.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know, but I always just think it's really funny when somebody says joshing instead of joking. That's like something in my common vocabulary. So I had to shout out that. But I got a couple more. I'll throw it over to you though. You got some lines for me?
Yeah. And if I had a steak, I'd fuck it.
A bloody raw steak. That was Robert Pattinson himself. Great line delivery there. That's definitely a good one, I would say.
Oh yeah, top 10 stuff. Throw it back to you.
All right, my next one is, "You're fond of me, lobster."
This is obviously Willem Dafoe, begging. Basically, the truth is he's not fond of the lobster.
No.
That's the sad part. But he's really trying to convince old Ephraim Winslow that he is fond of the lobster.
Another great line delivery there from Willem. Any line that he sort of shouts, I think, is up to his standard. So yeah, fond of me, lobster. Great one.
Next one for you. And if I tells ye to yank out every single nail from every moldering nail hole and suck off every speck of rust till all them nails sparkle like a sperm whale's pecker, and then carpenter the whole light station back together from scrap, and then do it all over again, you'll do it. And by God and by golly, you'll do it smiling, lad, because you'll like it, and you'll like it because I says you will. Contradict me again and I'll dock your wages.
It's a tough one. I think the sperm whale pecker gave it away, but yeah, Willem Dafoe obviously in that scene I was mentioning earlier. I mean, yeah, licking the nails clean, that'd be tough. And also, I believe he did like dock his wages, anyways, so it didn't really matter what he did. But yeah, again,
wasn't licking the nails well enough, I guess.
Classic line there. Hang that one up in the loop as well. Yeah, I love that.
No compliments on my performance. Wasn't impressive. One take, one shot. I don't know.
A lot better than my accent, so I definitely give you big subs. I got one last for you here. It's a tough one. Again, it's a yelling line, so bear with me. But your goddamn farts.
This is Rob Pattinson. He is definitely not a fan of the farts.
And I love that too. They put the underlying notions in. I mean, he farts basically in the first scene. It's like halfway through again he does it, and then like he just continuously does it throughout the movie, and you're like, when is it actually going to get mentioned? And then it's a great scene where Rob Pat is literally screaming about how much he hates his farts and stuff. So
I got one last one for you here. You sound like a goddamn parody.
Oh, I may miss. I mean, it is a 50-50 shot here. You sound like a parody.
This is obvious.
I must not be remembering the scene. I'm gonna guess Willem Dafoe.
No, man, it's Robert Pattinson. He's telling Dafoe he sounds like a parody, which I think is a brilliant line because it's like he's doing his crazy maritime sea shanty bullshit curse stuff where it's like you literally sound of a parody of like a character on an island. And it's so funny, obviously, when you said it in like a movie and a meta nature of it, but like it's an incredible line delivery from Rob Pat.
Shout out Rob Pat. I don't remember that one, but Korbin says it was good, so I back it. Those are all my lines. I think this may be the best episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? I don't know if we're gonna be able to top it either. I mean, the dialogue in this movie is unmatched, I think, for this category. So yeah.
I don't know if our success rate will ever be so high either.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it should have been 100% really. That's
you sold on that one, Kody.
Yeah. It's literally a 50-50 gas. But yeah, I threw that one for the betters out there. So you're welcome.
Yeah, that just gives us a chance to be better in the future. We you can't be perfect, so just give it something to attain.
Yeah, you could, but I messed it up.
Invite, fight, night, Kody.
I dubbed thee Sir William.
Who do you want to invite on the podcast?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I didn't even think about knighting them, but I am going to invite the birds on.
Interesting.
I want their perspective. I mean, mostly because if we have either of these idiots on, like they're just going to lie their asses off. I feel like we're not really going to get any answers of what really happened here because they're just going to be like, oh yeah, the other one was crazy. Like, okay, I don't need to hear that. But the birds, they would actually have perspective on what's going on. Obviously, they don't like Rob Pat, so there'd be some beef there. But I think they would be pretty honest on, what happened with Willem, who kind of started the descent, what actually, goes on in the lighthouse. Because I mean, they can just sit outside and see what's going on in there too. So I think they'd have a lot of perspective, and yeah, they're pretty much everywhere at all times. So I think they'd have a lot of good info.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely don't want Defoe or Rob Pattinson on just for the fact of like you and I soliloquize enough of
True.
like we talk plenty. We don't need these fucking two idiots to go yammering on and on about their lobster or their shitting or whatever the hell they're going to talk about. So let's keep it to the birds, or in my case, let's get the lighthouse on. We need to get the answers. I mean, me, you, and the light. What do you think, Kody?
In podcast form, I don't know if that's the best. If it's going straight to YouTube, if it's a straight to YouTube release, I back it. But yeah, it'd be hard, to get some dialogue out of the light, I would say.
Try our best. I'd like to have the mermaid on. I think I could set you two up too, maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd be a fan. I was thinking about recasting the mermaid as like Ana de Armas or something, but that's kind of just out of pocket, I feel like.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up. Don't even touch the mermaid. It's not worth it.
Yeah, there's no point to recast, but that'd be a good one to have on too. I mean, kind of, even if it is a delusional.
Give a voice to a woman in this movie. It would be nice.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that in my ugly too, but clearly does not pass the Bechdel test. Yeah, I think getting her on, at least we would understand like what sort of part of the story she is, if she is real, if she's not real. So I think that'd be a good choice too.
Fight, Kody. Who do you want to fight? Who are you taking on?
Yeah, it's a toss up here. Another sort of 50-50 shot. If you pick anybody else other than these two, you're getting creative. I'm gonna go with Willem Dafoe, pretty much just for not letting him into the lighthouse earlier. I feel like pretty much, all the problems would have been solved. Like, even if he does go in there with the wrong intentions or whatever this metaphorical bullshit is, he's going to end up, dying to these birds anyways. So I say you might as well let him go for it and see what it's all about. And yeah, kind of would have just solved the third act, most of the issues. Also, he had underground alcohol buried in pretty much the worst timing of all time. So yeah, not a great guy. I'm going to get Willem out of here. And I don't know if I'm going to go with an axe to the head, but, we're gonna get him
Would you beat him up and then put him on a leash?
I don't think I'd go that far either. There's a lot of extremes in this movie, but I think I'd give him a nice little deck to the face. That'd probably do the job.
Willem Dafoe has a face of a man who has already been punched and has taken it and loved it a little bit, I would say. But he's also on my fight list as well. I think he's the aggressor in all these situations. Like I said, he's the gaslighter, he's the lighthouse gatekeeper. So he's the real problem. Obviously, Rob Pattinson has his own pent-up issues. But Dafoe is really the source of all the strife here.
I back it. I think he's the easy target here. And hey, he's an old man too, so he's not going to take too many punches. So yeah, I respect it.
Knight. Who do you want to knight, Kody? I'm
gonna double down here. I'm gonna knight Willem Dafoe. It's only for one reason, and it's just because he looks like a horse when he's running, especially in the third act scene. He's a wee bit injured, and he's trying to run back, and he's literally galloping on the way there. And I'll tell you what, if that's not the most commitment I've ever seen in an actor in my life, I don't know what is. So actually, I was fighting Willem Dafoe's character, Tom, whichever Tom he is. This one, I'm actually knighting Willem Dafoe just for that run alone, because I think that's unbelievable commitment to the character.
Yeah, fair distinction. I was also not fighting Willem Dafoe. Thomas Wake. He's catching the hands, not Dafoe. We love Willem Dafoe around here. We also love birds, and we would never kill a bird. So I want to knight the one-eyed seagull just to kind of save ourselves from any. We're two guys stuck here on a podcast, Kody, and I don't want any curses to befall us. So let's not kill any seagulls.
Smart. Great hindsight, I would say. But yeah, obviously we don't support bird. Death or abuse, anything like that. So yeah, that boy, he deserves a knighthood, and yeah, I think we should definitely give it to him.
Pro bird, except for the fake ones.
True, except for the government controlled ones, but other than that, pro bird.
1890s, they didn't have that yet. The recast.
Bond. James Bond.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
This was a tough one. So I did want to, like I said, I didn't think it was worth even recasting the mermaid. She doesn't speak at all. She's essentially like a Bosnian model, I think, or a Bosnian actress. I don't know if she's in anything else or really much about her, but let's recast the main two. I'm going alternate universe. We take Defoe out. We replace him with another stately old man, Morgan Freeman. It's this, I would say, would be a little intense for Morgan Freeman. I don't know if he's gone quite this weird ever or this interesting, out there outside the box. But I think Morgan Freeman, in his later years could use a challenge and can really play the crazy up. And I'd love to see him play off like a younger actor in a crazy situation like this. And he would wear that captain's hat like no other.
I completely agree. I came up with a couple different duos to kind of, get this pairing out there. And Morgan Freeman was one of my picks.
Oh, yeah.
On the exact same pages here. I paired him up with Jake Gyllenhaal. I think that would be a fun pairing I think Gyllenhaal could kind of do the insanity on Rob Pat's part.
I think maybe like 10 years ago, we do like a Morgan Freeman Gyllenhaal version of this movie.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the recast. We can put him any point you want, Corbino. Yeah, I think Morgan Freeman would be a great pick for this, especially sort of that dialogue. I think he would be kind of ideal choice for that too, in some of his past roles. But my other one that I'll quickly go over to, second duo I was thinking of, and this was like the first guy who came to mind when I was trying to recast Willem, and that's Denzel Washington. I don't know, maybe it's just the similarities between this movie and
Tragedy Macbeth.
Yeah, Tragedy Macbeth. Obviously the black and white, and I mean this movie's not dialogue Shakespeare as much, but it has some similarities. So I was thinking him, and then a pair up with him. Who else? I mean, John David Washington. I think that'd be an unbelievably fun
Wow, a
movie.
real father-son duo.
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be a little weird, Cody.
But in the movie, they're not father-son. So I think that dynamic would be unbelievably fun. But yeah, those are my two duos. Take or leave them. But we're on the Morgan Freeman train. So I like that a lot.
Fair enough. Morgan Freeman. I'm pro Morgan Freeman. I don't know about maybe throw Denzel and Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know.
Swap them. I don't hate it. But you got any other recasts?
No, I couldn't think of. I don't know. I think Rob Pattinson is actually really perfect for the role. I mean, so is Defoe. They're both great.
I agree. I did have one other kind of just throw in a character kind of sort of thing. Some other movies too, they kind of throw in characters in the third act, kind of spice it up a little bit. So I was thinking throw in Matt Damon, sort of.
Cody, you're spoiling my fucking post-credit scene. God damn it.
Really?
Yes.
That's tough. But yeah, kind of just bring Interstellar-esque vibes to this movie. And what I wanted to do as well, he's going to be just a random ship captain, kind of a loner. But he comes to the island, deep into the storm with basically just as much booze as is humanly possible. So he's just gonna boost him up for the third act. Respect. And he's gonna get killed off with an axe as well, poetically. But yeah, he's basically just kind of like the guy who went to the gas station to get some more alcohol for everybody.
Yeah, Cody, you really have had my number on these notes today. You're saying everything right before I have a chance. But let's hit the rating before we get to post-credit scene.
Do you like me?
I actually didn't see what you gave this on Letterboxd, so I'm curious to what do you want to give this movie out of 69, Cody?
I think I literally just put my entry in before we started recording. It was at a 3.5 for me. I'm gonna stick it at a 52 out of 69. I feel like the movies that we've done on this season have pretty much all been in the exact same range for me, but this is probably on the lowest of the past three that we've done, because I think I had a 53, 54 with Puss in Boots and whatever the last one we did.
John Wick, yeah.
John Wick. X-Men, obviously. Well, that one's a little bit higher just because, I like that movie for some reason. But yeah, this one, 52 out of 69, I think that's a fair rating. I'm kind of a big story guy, I feel like. So if the story didn't completely enthrall me or capture me, it's going to be on the lower side. But I mean, like I said, acting wise, sort of technical wise, this movie's on a different level. So got to give it its respect.
Well, Cody, I'm right there with you. I got a 51 out of 69. I mean, I agree. This is very similar. I like John Wick a little bit more than the other movies, but in terms of Days of Future Past and Puss in Boots, this is like right there in that same range because I gave those 49s and 50s. So
yeah,
but we need to do some bad movies soon, Cody, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of just like, it's the sort of the mid spectrum. We need to do like really good movies and then some really
These are,
bad
I would say, slightly above average is where we've been hanging out.
Yeah. Well, your rating system's all messed up, but yeah, I agree.
Okay, now post-credit scene, since you ruined it already.
What if I told you we were putting a team together? Who's we?
You were bringing in Matt Damon?
I was bringing in Matt Damon. I got it right here. So the idea was basically 2 new wikis show up on the island.
Mhm.
They're just gone. The people are gone.
Gotcha.
Dafoe, Robert Pattinson, they've disappeared. Who knows what happens? They've completely disappeared. But it's just Matt Damon and Jeff Bridges ready to take on as the new wikis and man the lighthouse. And then that's really just the scene. It's just that they're going to be there and they're probably going to repeat the cycle of going crazy.
Nice. Setting up a sequel. I like that. And yeah, interesting choices. I think we haven't seen Matt Damon kind of do crazy psychological stuff too much, I don't think. So that'd be fun. And Jeff Bridges definitely has the chops to match him. So I like that pairing.
Yeah, I just watched Jeff Bridges' classic film, R.I.P.D.
I saw that. What do you think about his performance in that?
Accent work is top notch. I don't really think I think he could do that accent in this particular post-credit scene. It would work perfectly.
There you go. Get the R.I.P.D. Jeff Bridges in the lighthouse. I'm definitely here for it. My scene's a little bit different. Basically, my kind of thinking behind this is I just want to see Willem Dafoe with tentacles again. So I don't think we saw enough of that. So basically, it's just gonna start up with the cops showing up to this kind of abandoned lighthouse. They walk past Robert Pattinson's body. The birds are still doing whatever they want to it. And they end up finding Willem's body. And there's a cut, and then it's like the classic crime scene crap where there's tape everywhere. I don't even know what
tape in the 1890s. Yeah,
maybe this is 100 years down the line. I don't even know. But basically, tentacles start. Yeah, exactly.
You gave me an idea. Keep going.
But anyways, tentacles just pop out of Willem Dafoe basically, and he kills everybody. So yeah, kind of just a fun action scene at the end.
Here's another idea. Flash forward to 1990. Explorers discover this island and find the remnants, and it's an archaeological dig site where they're discovering the stuff, and then they get attacked by a sea monster.
That's not bad. And Willem Dafoe's there as well. But yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe is like the ghost of the island, and he's whispering in people's ear. I do want to say the character that Willem Dafoe plays in Aquaman is Zvokel, for the record. Just felt the need to wrap that up at the end here.
Yeah, basically he's the one who's like Aquaman's mentor. Basically.
He trains him. Yeah. He helps him. Nicole Kidman says, "Hey, go train my son."
Would have never guessed his character name, but he's good in Aquaman.
Also star of Justice League. He's in it. He's in the Snyder Cut. Yeah, he's in Justice League.
Yeah, he is. He shows up very briefly.
He looks different, I think. It's, completely different character, basically. Just like Amber Heard. 6 Degrees of Dave.
I recognize this animal. We brought some over a flame to the shore.
We're going to be connecting Willem Dafoe to Dave Bautista. Cody, do you want to take it away? I'm sure it's going to be a long one, as usual.
I will take it away. I actually kept it pretty short this time. Willem's in a lot of movies. The one that really stuck out to me, of one that I almost forgot he was in too, but a really good movie is Fantastic Mr. Fox. Really underrated, I think, animated movie. Wes Anderson joint, obviously. And with that, who else are you going to connect? But the Clooney man, George Clooney. I feel like we haven't talked about him in a while in the pod, so got to shout him out. And of course, his massive franchise is Ocean's 11, so I wanted to connect that. Going through there, I feel like you can go pretty much any sort of direction you'd want to get to Dave.
There's 11 of them.
Yeah, I took one of the shortest ones, I would say, and singled out the eating man himself, Brad Pitt. Then, of course, one of my favorite movies of his is Fight Club with Edward Norton. And Edward Norton was in Glass Onion 2
it is.
With Dave Bautista. So I believe that is only 5 degrees of Dave this week compared to my 10 and 15 from the last couple weeks. So I decided to take it easy on him. But yeah, love Ed Norton and love George Clooney. So I had to get them involved.
I love that path. Ocean's 11, one of my favorites. Absolute classic.
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh, one of the GOATs. I do actually want to inform you that Dave Bautista and Willem Dafoe were apparently in a movie together, allegedly. According to IMDb, they were in My Son, What Have Ye Done?, which is a movie that is from 2009 and stars Michael Shannon as well as Willem Dafoe in the secondary role. But it lists Dave Bautista as playing just a police officer, basically. So I don't think he has a speaking line, or I couldn't even find an image of him in the movie. He may not even be in it. It could all just be a lie. but allegedly they did appear in the same movie. That's not going to be my path, though.
Yeah.
My path here is going to start with Dave Bautista and go to, Fast 10's coming out. So I'm thinking of Vin Diesel's on the brain. So let's go to 2013's Riddick, which is the third installment in the Riddick franchise. We actually just recently talked about it on our Tokyo Drift episode that I did with Jackson Carter that will be coming out at the end of May. So listen to that, a fast conversation. So Riddick, Dave Bautista was in that. You know who else was in that, Kody? A favorite of yours, Carl Urban.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you what character he plays in that, but in the movie Thor Ragnarok, he plays Scourge, the dude with the bald head and like the tattoos. Also in Thor Ragnarok, Idris Elba as Heimdall, classic. And he voices Fluke, who is a seal in Finding Dory. And as well, Willem Dafoe plays Gil in Finding Dory.
Wow. The Finding Dory connection. I would have never guessed that.
Underrated.
Props.
Actually, I've only seen it once and I didn't really watch it.
It's okay. I didn't know Idris was in it either, to be fair. But yeah, that is funny. I did not know they were in a movie together either. I mean, 2009 is like early Dave as well.
Yeah, like he very well, I think he was basically an extra. I mean, obviously he was credited, but I couldn't even find an image. So I don't know.
Yeah, we need that picture of him in a police uniform.
We might have to scour the movie, just watch it looking for Dave. I mean, it should be easy to spot.
Yeah, I mean, pretty big guy, but love that. Great 6 degrees of Dave, I would say this week.
Let's move on to our final category, recommendations.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Kody, what do you want to talk about? What have you been into?
I don't have too much. Haven't been doing a ton recently. The one thing I did want to bring up is Succession.
Yeah, looking forward to continuing to watch Succession as it plays out. I'm going to be tuning in on the Max app from Discovery and Warner.
The new Blue Max. Yeah, there's a lot of movie news in general. That's a real questionable one, but yeah, that was all the recs I really had for this week. I have kind of been slack in the past couple of days since we recorded, but I'll definitely throw it over to you. What recs you got for everybody?
I think I kind of mentioned this in the last episode, but I as it's beginning to expand throughout the country, I would really recommend people go check out the movie How to Blow Up a Pipeline. It is genuinely like thrilling. It is basically a heist movie with obviously, some sociopolitical opinions and undertones and well, not even undertones, like very clear messaging. It's literally in the title.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a really incredible movie. The direction is awesome. The editing is fantastic. From the short little interlude opening that it gives you throughout the entire film, it's extremely high paced and gripping throughout. I think I'm probably going to go see it again in theaters because I saw it by myself originally. I'll probably go with Mina to see it again. So yeah, if you have a chance to go check out How to Blow Up a Pipeline, it's really great. A lot of actors that I think will probably continue to be in a lot of things moving forward, and a couple of semi-recognizable faces. But I think the coolest thing about it is like it is Ocean 11's-esque, but it's also got an incredibly like interesting and diverse group of people. Like it is all these young people coming together for a common cause, but they all come from different backgrounds and have, different reasons for the feelings. And the movie explains to you why they're doing this, and it makes it very clear, why this is important to them and, why these ideals are important to society. So I think it's very strong. I would definitely recommend people go give it a chance. Check it out.
Yeah, I saw your Letterboxd review of it as well. Pretty high rating from you. So yeah, might be after one I definitely check out.
And then I did go see the Dungeons and Dragons movie on Saturday.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit.
I enjoyed it. I think people raved about it. I was never even really super interested in the movie from the trailer. Like I didn't think it looked great. I'm not super high on Chris Pine as an actor. Like he's in a couple things I like. Okay. But he's just not my guy, but I did enjoy it. It is a little bit of a high fantasy thing, which I don't typically, go for, but I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was serious in an interesting way. It wasn't like meta and like, for a Dungeons and Dragon movie, you could have really gone like full, like modern, like let's be funny about it and have people playing D&D at the end, or like be super self-referentiality to the video game and have some sort of like dice rolling luck-based thing. But it's super self-serious. It's set in this world, and it's like it's a comedy, but it's serious in the way that Lord of the Rings is reverent for the material that it it has, right? Whereas a lot of like MCU comedies now are just like, let's have a quip here and make a dumb joke and make a joke about the situation that we're in and not appreciate the real world. I thought that it was at least interesting and being, you know, self-serious in that way. It's written and directed by the people like who made Game Night and did a pass on the Spider-Man Homecoming script and have done a pass on the upcoming Flash movie. One of them is John Francis Daly, who we've talked about a little bit on the past. Going back to our Jumping the Shark episode where his character dies in Bones.
Oh, okay. I did not remember that.
He's also in Freaks and Geeks, of course.
Oh shit! I think
and they made Vacation as well. They directed Vacation, the reboot with Ed Helms.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a good team behind it. And I had asked you as well what you thought on it because I've heard good things about it. But just from like the trailer alone, I was like, this isn't really something I would want to check it out. I don't think so. Yeah, it's on my maybe list of something to watch because I have heard pretty good things about it, surprisingly.
Yeah, and you know, it was like a packed theater. Like it was a small, it was a small one of the smaller theaters they had at the mall, but like it was full. It was pretty much sold out. Every seat was filled. People were laughing, enjoying it. It was a good experience. So
that's cool.
Yeah, go check that one out. That's really all I got for Rex. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time with a special episode.
Ooh, stay capping.
Peace.
Thanks.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.